Welcome to Timeline Engine Podcast. Listen now.
You know, we usually think of talent, that raw, natural ability to just get things as the ultimate golden ticket.
Oh, absolutely. It's what we all want, right?
We all want to be the natural, the person who walks into a room, picks up a guitar for the first time, and just plays a song.
Or the student who never seems to study but aces every test. We idolize it.
We do. But today, we're going to flip that whole idea on its head. What if that natural aptitude? What if it isn't a gift? What if, for a certain type of person, it's actually a trap?
It's a huge shift in perspective. I mean, we are so culturally conditioned to praise potential.
Yeah.
We love the whiz kid story.
Yeah.
But the source material we're diving into today suggests that having high potential often just serves as a disguise.
A disguise for what?
For a complete lack of process, it's a mask. And eventually, and this is usually when the stakes are highest, that mask slips.
And the way this source presents that argument is, honestly, it's a little unsettling. We're not looking at a standard psychology paper or a business article.
No, not at all.
We've analyzed a script. It's titled The Talent Paradox, 3 Simulations of Potential versus Process. And the format is, it's totally unique. It's written as a dialogue between 2 abstract entities.
Right. You have the engine, which is this cold, precise machine running a simulation of a human life.
Okay.
And then you have the observer, who's basically just checking the logs and asking for status updates.
It feels very sci-fi, almost clinical. There's really no empathy in the text.
And that's by design. The engine explicitly states the ground rules at the beginning. No praise, no criticism, only consequences.
Wow.
It removes that emotional buffer we usually get from, parents or teachers. It takes its subject, someone we would all consider gifted, and it runs their life through 3 different timelines, just to see where they end up if they rely on talent alone.
And that's our mission today. We're going to walk through these 3 timelines, timeline A, B, and C, just like the simulation does. But before we hit run on that simulation, we have to profile the subject, because I have a feeling a lot of us are going to feel a little called out here.
The profile is deceptively simple. The subject is in their early mid-20s. The engine describes them simply as not average. They learn fast, they see patterns very quickly.
So in the school setting, this is the kid who finishes the test in 20 minutes and puts their head down on the desk.
Yeah, that's the one.
I knew that kid. Sometimes I was that kid.
A lot of people were. But here's the crucial data point that the engine flags. The subject trusts potential more than process.
Meaning?
They believe that because they're smart, the result is guaranteed. They think their talent is the engine of their success, not just the fuel for it.
So their logic is basically, I'm good at this, so I don't need to practice.
Precisely. The engine notes their primary behavior is inconsistent execution, because they've never really needed to be consistent to get good results.
Okay, so let's see where that leads. Let's start with timeline A. The engine calls this simulation deferred effort.
Deferred effort.
Okay, let's unpack timeline A. This starts out feeling pretty great, honestly.
It does.
It's year 1. The subject is performing well. They're getting the grades or the sales numbers or whatever the metric is, and they aren't even trying that hard.
They're getting results without discipline. And this is the danger zone. This is what a psychologist might call a false feedback loop.
How so?
In this early phase, their lack of effort is actually being rewarded. The subject interprets this success as confirmation. They think, I'm doing this right, my way works.
And the source says they minimize effort to preserve enjoyment.
Yes, they keep it fun. If it starts to feel like work, they back off. They're optimizing for ease.
I think we've all been there. You start a new hobby, say learning guitar, you pick up the first 3 chords instantly, you think, wow, I'm a natural at this, I'm going to be a rock star. And because it's easy, you don't bother learning scales or theory. You just coast on the fun part.
But the simulation moves forward. It jumps to year 3. And this is where the reality check hits. The difficulty naturally increases. In any field music, coding, management, the complexity, it eventually scales up. And suddenly, the subject hits a wall. They encounter a problem that raw talent can't solve.
So this is the turning point. But wait, can't they just start working hard then? Why is this a trap?
Because they don't know how to work hard. The engine notes a very specific and very common reaction here.
And what's that?
The subject doesn't double down. They disengage. They just check out.
Why? Is it just laziness?
It's deeper than laziness. It's a flaw in their internal logic. The subject tells themselves, if it were right for me, it would feel easier.
Oof, that line. If it were right for me, it would feel easier. I feel like I've used that excuse a dozen times.
If we all have.
Oh, this project is too much of a grind. Maybe it's just not my passion.
Right. We mistake struggle for wrong fit because their entire history has taught them that success equals ease. So when it gets hard, they assume something is broken.
They don't have the muscle to push through resistance because they never built it in year one.
Exactly. They view friction as a stop sign, not a stepping stone.
So what happens to the subject in Timeline A? Does the engine let them figure it out?
No. The simulation runs to year 6, and the outcome is bleak. The subject is described as burned out.
Burned out.
But the most painful detail the engine provides is that they are now outperformed by slower learners who simply persisted.
Wow. That's the tortoise and the hare ending. The people who struggled in year one, the ones the subject probably looked down on, they've now passed them.
Because those average people built a process to deal with difficulty. They learned how to fail and keep going. The subject only had potential. And Timeline A ends with the verdict: ability unused.
The lack of struggle early on prevented the development of grit.
That's it.
It's interesting you mentioned grit. It sounds like the subject in Timeline A is just fragile. They crumble the moment it gets tough. But surely some smart people realize what's happening, right? They don't just quit.
You're right. Some don't quit. Some get defensive. And that brings us right to Timeline B. The engine calls this one identity protection.
This one felt darker to me.
Timeline A is just sort of sad. Timeline B feels manipulative.
It is more calculated. In this timeline, the subject realizes that the stakes are high. They aren't just coasting anymore. Here, they are terrified of being exposed.
Exposed as not being the smart one.
Yes, they've built their entire self-worth on being the smart one. So if they fail, they aren't just failing a task.
They're losing their identity.
Exactly. So instead of disengaging, they start maneuvering. The engine says they select environments where talent is visible, not tested.
Visible, not tested. Can you give me a real-world example of what that looks like?
Sure. Think about video games. This is the player who masters level 1. They can get a perfect score on that first level every single time. They look amazing to anyone watching.
Okay.
But they refuse to go to level 2.
Because they might die. They might look clumsy.
Right. They're playing for the high score on the easy setting. In a career, this looks like the person who stays in a job they are overqualified for.
They dominate that small pond. They do. They avoid projects that might require skills they don't have yet. They curate their life to ensure they always look competent. You're playing defense.
They're protecting the brand.
That's a good way to put it. The engine says they avoid feedback because feedback implies imperfection. They avoid repetition because repetition implies you didn't get it right the first time.
And they avoid failure at all costs. But if you avoid failure, you stop learning.
And that's the cost. The simulation says by year 4, their skill is frozen at an early version. They're stuck with the skills they had when they were 22.
Wow.
They are preserving the image of talent, but they're sacrificing the actual growth of talent.
And the outcome here, the engine says they are remembered as promising.
That word promising, it haunts me.
It sounds like a compliment, though. Oh, he's very promising.
But in a retrospective simulation, if you're looking back at a career and the best word you have is promising, it's an insult.
It means you had potential that never materialized.
Exactly. Timeline B ends with reputation replacing progress. They are more concerned with looking smart than actually becoming competent.
That is a trap that is so easy to fall into, especially in the corporate world. You get a reputation for being the bright young star, and suddenly you're terrified to ask a stupid question.
Because it might shatter the illusion.
And that fear freezes you. You stop growing because you can't admit you need to grow. Okay, so Timeline A is burnout. Timeline B is stagnation. But there has to be a third option. What about the person who sees the train wreck coming and tries to fix it?
That brings us to Timeline C, late discipline.
Okay, late discipline. This sounds hopeful. The subject realizes they need to get it together.
It starts with a trigger. In year 2, comparison triggers discomfort. The subject looks around. They see those less talented peers from Timeline A, the ones who are struggling before starting to advance.
The gap is closing.
The gap is closing, and it triggers panic. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the best. Why is Dave getting the promotion?
Right.
So they react. They try to introduce discipline. They try to start working hard. You know, they buy the planner. They set the alarm for 5:00 a.m.
They do the whole routine.
But I think the engine notes something fascinating about the physiology here. Effort feels unnatural.
Unnatural, like physically.
Yes. Think about it. If you spend 20 years slouching, standing up straight feels wrong. It feels painful. The subject has coasted for so long that sitting down and doing deep, difficult, boring work feels like wearing a shirt that's 2 sizes too small. They are fighting their own neural pathways.
So it's not just a mindset thing, it's almost like an allergic reaction to the grind.
The source describes it as friction shock. They just aren't used to the friction of effort.
And the simulation says they work, but inconsistently.
Yes, and they treat discipline like a temporary fix. That's the fatal error in Timeline C.
What do you mean?
They view discipline as a medicine you take when you're sick, not a vitamin you take every day. They think, okay, I'm falling behind, I'll grind for a month to catch up, and then I can go back to being a genius.
Like cramming for an exam.
Exactly. But life isn't a semester. You can't cram a career. As soon as the results slow down, or as soon as they feel safe again, they abandon the discipline.
They revert to their baseline.
They revert to talent. And this cycle of panic and coast, the simulation says it takes them until year 8. 8 years.
8 years is a long time to spin your wheels. What's the realization they finally have?
They finally understand that talent reduced the urgency to build systems. They didn't build the scaffolding when the building was small. Now the building is huge and wobbly, and it's too late to pour the foundation.
And the final state for Timeline C?
Average.
Ouch. After all that panic and trying. Just average.
The engine makes a very cruel but accurate distinction here. It says they end up average not because of limits, but because of delay.
So they had the capacity to be exceptional.
Always. They just started the real work too late. They spent the prime years of skill acquisition fighting against the need to acquire skills.
That is heavy. So in all 3 timelines, the result is disappointment, burnout, stagnation, or averageness. And it all stems from that initial advantage of being talented.
Which brings us to the conclusion of the simulation, the system output. The engine synthesizes all 3 timelines into a single pattern.
And this is where the source material gets really philosophical, right? The engine says, talent did not fail the subject.
Talent delayed the development of discipline.
That's the core paradox. We think talent is a jetpack that speeds us up. But in these simulations, talent acts more like a pause button on our character development.
That's a great way to put it. Because things are easy, we pause the hard work of building habits.
There's that line that really stood out to me. In all timelines, talent created comfort, and comfort postponed structure.
It's the comfort trap. When things are easy, you don't build structure. You don't create workflows, you don't learn how to manage your time, you don't learn how to study.
You just do it.
And that works. It works great. Until the moment it doesn't. And by then, you don't have a safety net.
And the final assessment from the engine is probably the most haunting line in the whole script. Potential remained intact. Time did not.
Chilling, isn't it? That's the ultimate scarce resource. The potential was always there. The subject was always capable of being great. But they ran out of time to build the vehicle to carry that potential.
So you can have the best engine in the world, but if you never built the chassis and the wheels, that engine is just making noise in a garage.
Yeah, exactly.
At the very end of the script, the observer who's been watching this whole train wreck asks the engine a simple question, just one word: lesson.
And the engine, being a machine, just replies, no lesson. Only pattern recognition.
That is so cool. No lesson. It's like the universe saying, I don't care if you learn from this or not, this is just physics.
But I think that is the lesson for us. The universe is an engine. It operates on cause and effect. It doesn't care how much potential you have. It only cares about what you output.
And output requires a system.
It requires a system.
So let's pivot. The machine says no lesson, but for our listeners, there has to be one. If I'm listening to this and I'm sweating because I realize I'm in timeline A, or maybe I'm stuck in timeline B, hiding from challenges, what do I do?
Well, first, you have to recognize the pattern. That's why we do these deep dives. If you can see the trap, you can step out of it.
So practically speaking, if I'm the talented person who is starting to hit that wall,
you have to fundamentally change your relationship with friction. You have to stop looking for things to feel easy. When you hit that wall where your talent doesn't work, you have to recognize that feeling, not as a sign to stop, but as the starting line.
That's where the actual work begins.
That is the moment. It's about valuing the process over the potential. It's realizing that SMART isn't a destination, it's just a starting stats roll in a generic RPG.
I like that.
Exactly. SMART is just a multiplier. But if your effort is 0 times anything is still 0.
And, For the listener who might feel like they are the slower learner, the one who didn't have that early talent, this simulation is actually incredibly validating.
It's massively validating. Because while the talented subject was falling into these traps of comfort and ego, the person who had to struggle was building systems.
They were learning how to fail without falling apart.
They were building grit. They were playing on hard mode from the beginning, so they got better at the game.
And in the long run, by year 6, year 8, year 10, those systems outperform raw talent every time.
Consistency beats intensity. Structure beats potential. It's not just a motivational poster. It's the math of the simulation.
It really makes you rethink how we praise people, too. You know, telling a kid, you're so smart, might be the worst thing you can do for them. It just sets them up for timeline B.
It pins their identity to a fixed trait. We should be praising the method, not the attribute. You work so hard on that, not you're a natural, because the natural has no defense when things get unnatural.
This has been a fascinating, if slightly terrifying, look at the dark side of being gifted. It's a reminder that what we start with matters so much less than how we manage it over time.
It really comes down to that final variable, time.
Yeah.
You can have all the potential in the world, but if you wait for it to feel effortless, you're just burning daylight. The engine doesn't wait.
So here is the question we want to leave you with today. It's a bit of a challenge based on what we've just unpacked. I want you to imagine that your natural aptitude, whatever it is that comes easily to you, was stripped away today. Gone. You are no longer the smart one or the fast learner.
If you lost your head start, would your current systems be enough to keep you moving forward? Do you have the discipline to maintain your altitude without the engine of talent?
Or are you just coasting on the fumes of your potential?
Comfort is costly. Don't let it cost you your time.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Start building those systems. We'll see you in the next simulation.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more AI and psychology insight.